You will never remember being born. You will never remember dying. That's not a fact. That's a clue. The reason you can't remember the endpoints is because you never actually experience them. Here's the viral line, so you don't miss it. You don't disappear, you arrive. Comment, I'm still here. Now, let me set up the buried secret in a way that actually makes sense. If you've ever felt weirdly calm about big endings, or weirdly terrified of small ones, this is why this topic grabs you by the throat. The story you were handed says life is defined by entry and exit. Birth starts it, death ends it. Clean, simple, and completely untestable from the inside, because you don't experience birth as consciousness. You experience waking up into it. You don't experience death as consciousness. You experience whatever comes after it, if there is an after. And that's the point. You never actually experience the entry and exit points. You experience the next moment of awareness. That's why the reframe matters. The "you can't remember being born, you can't remember dying" line isn't just a trivia fact about memory. What if it's the key to one of existence's most hidden truths? What if the greatest secret is not that you end, but that you continue, always moving, always awakening, never lost, only transformed? And I know how this sounds. Be honest. It sounds like something you'd hear at 2 a.m. when your brain is doing that thing where it tries to solve infinity. But here's the part nobody tells you. The most disruptive ideas usually sound ridiculous right before they start sounding obvious. So let's ask the question that makes people swallow hard. Can you ever truly experience your own death as the awareness behind your eyes? Not as a body, not as a story, as the consciousness that's listening right now. Can that awareness witness its own ending? Or does it only ever witness to the next page? And this is where an ancient group steps in, like they've been holding a map under the table the whole time. The Gnostics. The ones whispered about by mystics and erased by empires. Their whole vibe was not "believe harder." It was "know yourself. Remember what you are." While priests promised salvation through obedience, the Gnostics quietly held maps of reality. They said the material world is a veil, a shifting dream, a moving picture that distracts you from the divine spark within, that ageless, indestructible awareness that death can't reach. But here's the part nobody tells you. They didn't just say, "You have a spark." They built an entire mythic cosmology to explain how you got distracted from it. And this is where it gets intense. But stay with me, because it's a story, not a lecture. Their secret knowledge, scattered across the sands of Nag Hammadi and hidden in battered codices, describes a cosmos far stranger than the one you were taught. They spoke of aeons, vast realms of consciousness, each more subtle and radiant than the last, like levels of reality that aren't made of matter, but of awareness itself. And then comes the twist in their myth. The demiurge, the false god, the architect of the material world, a being so convinced of his own power that he declares, "I am God, and there is no other." The kind of statement that sounds holy, until you realize it might be insecurity with a crown on it. The Gnostic said, "No, that's not the highest. That's a warden, a jailer. And his enforcers are the archons, rulers of the material realm, keepers of thresholds, managers of illusion. And the system they run is not just life and death. It's a loop, a reincarnation loop, endless soul recycling. And before you go, okay, reincarnation is spiritual growth, what's the problem? Listen. For the Gnostics, reincarnation wasn't some cute upgrade system. It was a sign you hadn't awakened yet. It meant the soul was still caught, still forgetting, still being pushed back onto the wheel. To them, the fact that you keep returning is not proof you're learning, it's proof you're not free. And the only exit, they said, was gnosis, not belief, not membership, not obedience. direct inner knowing, the kind that snaps you awake inside the dream and lets you return home. Home, in their language, is not a location on a map. It's the original wholeness beyond the veil, the higher reality you forgot. And here's the part nobody tells you, that forgetting is the real prison, not a cage of flesh, a maze of amnesia. Now bring it back to death, because this is where the original fear machinery lives. The Gnostics did not see death as an end. They saw it as a passage, a door, not a wall, a crossing from one dream to the next. And then they dropped the idea that makes modern people sit up straight. At the moment of death, your awareness is not snuffed out. It shifts, seamlessly, into another reality, another timeline, another branch where you survive. Is that literally true? I'm not going to pretend I can prove it to you. The original teaching doesn't ask you to cosplay certainty. It asks you to notice the clue. You never experience the end. You only experience the next arrival. Timeline shifting is modern language. The Gnostics didn't say timeline like they were writing sci-fi. They spoke of layers of reality and the movement of consciousness through them. But the metaphor fits if we're trying to translate the feeling of their insight into today's words. And here's the part nobody tells you. If this is even partly true, it threatens the entire machinery of fear, because fear works best when you believe there is one final cliff and you're walking toward it. Why has this knowledge been buried, burned, exiled, rewritten by power, dismissed by religious leaders? Because if death is not real in the way you were taught, if you are the architect of your journey, then who holds power over you? That question alone explains a lot. Empires and religions can promise you safety only if they can convince you you're fragile. If you're an awareness that keeps arriving, the leverage disappears. Now here's where it gets weird in a good way. Modern science, in its own language, keeps circling this territory. Parallel worlds, many worlds interpretation vibes. Quantum immortality as a thought experiment. The role of the observer. The idea that all possibilities exist and that reality branches with choice and event. I'm not here to teach quantum mechanics. Relax. I'm saying the modern metaphors rhyme with the ancient ones. The Gnostics claimed reality is layered and possibilities are inexhaustible. Modern models whisper something similar, that every ending might be one branch among many, and the observer only ever experiences the continuation. Let this land. You are the immortal observer shifting from page to page, not a fleeting shadow, but an eternal flame moving through realities, never extinguished, always arriving, always conscious. But here's the part nobody tells you. If you accept that idea as a working hypothesis, it changes how you live before you ever talk about death. Because suddenly, choices matter in a different way. Fear means something different. Regret means something different. So, how does this shifting work? In the language of feeling. Imagine your life as a river. Not one straight current, but a delta. Branching, splitting, merging, endlessly. Each channel is a possibility. Each bend is a path you could take. You stand on the shore thinking you know where you're headed, but the river is doing something bigger than your plan. And here's another image, because this one sticks. You are the flame that passes from candle to candle. The candle changes, the flame continues, same light, new holder. Or think of it like a book. You are not the ink, you are the reader. You turn the page and the scene changes, but the awareness reading it doesn't stop existing just because the chapter ended. Now, let's make it personal, because without that, it's just a cool idea. How many times have you stood at the edge of change and thought, this is it, this is the end, and yet, here you are, watching, listening, still aware, still choosing, and if you're honest, you might even remember moments that felt like reality should have snapped, strange survivals, near misses. uncanny second chances that defied your logic. What if those were breadcrumbs? Not proof. Breadcrumbs. Little hints that the river has more branches than you can see from your current shore. Let me give you my first "I'm a normal person" moment, because I don't want this to sound like I live in a cave writing prophecies. I've had nights where I opened my phone for a quick check, and then doom-scrolled so hard that 30 minutes vanished. I swear it was 5 minutes. Then I look up like I just got teleported into the future, holding my phone like it betrayed me. That's the small version of the same clue. We don't experience the cut. We experience the next moment we notice. Now, the bigger version. I've had a near miss that still makes my stomach drop when I replay it. I still don't know how I walked away from that. Nothing mystical happened. No glowing lights. Just a second where the outcome could have gone one way, and it went another. And it made me wonder, not claim, wonder. What if consciousness doesn't meet the endpoint the way we assume it does? What if it slides into the branch where the story continues? And here's the part nobody tells you. Even the feeling of déjà vu might matter in this framework. Not as proof of magic, but as a whisper. A faint memory of turning a corner you've turned in another branch. A fragment drifting through when the old story fades but the witness remains. Because that's the Gnostic answer to the obvious question. If I'm shifting, why don't I remember other timelines? Why don't I feel immortal? They'd say memory is the gatekeeper. As you move from world to world, the old narrative dissolves. But the core, the spark, the witness stays. Sometimes fragments leak through as dreams, synchronicities, déjà vu, sudden intuitions that you've been here before. And now we hit the twist that changes everything. The real awakening isn't escaping death. It's recognizing your power as the shifter. Sit with that for a second. If you're waiting for a day when you beat death, you're still thinking like a prisoner. The shift is different. It's realizing you are never at the mercy of endings the way you were trained to believe. You are the awareness that keeps arriving. You are the traveler, not the journey. But here's the part nobody tells you. If you are the shifter, then fear is not your enemy. Fear is your signal. It tells you where you still believe the illusion of finality. It shows you where you still think the river has one channel. And this is where the archons come back into the picture. The Gnostics described them as keepers of the threshold, rulers of the material world, feeding on ignorance and fear. Their only real power is convincing you that you are trapped, finite, and doomed. The awakened soul sees the trick. The lock is illusion. The trap is a story. Most souls, they warned, move from timeline to timeline, life to life, never remembering the true self, never questioning the script. That's the reincarnation loop. That's the recycling. Not because the universe hates you, but because you keep falling asleep inside the dream. So what would it mean to wake up? Not in a dramatic, supernatural way, in a practical, everyday way. What would it mean to live as a lucid dreamer? Because if death is a door, not a wall, then the most important skill is not avoiding doors. It's learning how to walk through your day with awareness so you stop getting dragged by the same patterns. But here's the part nobody tells you. You can practice shifting before you ever talk about dying. You can practice it in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. So here's the practice section, and I'm going to keep it simple on purpose. Pause. Breathe. Notice, I am. Not the story, not the thought, just the raw fact of awareness. Right now, you are aware. That awareness is the only thing that has been present for every scene you've ever lived. Ask the question, who is witnessing this? Who is aware right now? Don't answer with words. Just feel the angle of attention turning back toward the witness. That is the beginning of remembering yourself throughout your day. And you don't do this once like a ritual and call it done. You carry the question like a lamp. You bring it into traffic, into conversations, into stress, into boredom, into success, into failure. When fear spikes, do not try to crush it. Don't suppress it. Shift your relationship to it. Say this quietly, like you're reminding yourself of something you already know. I have been here before. I am the traveler, not the journey. That line is not meant to be a spell. It's a pattern. Interrupt. It moves you from panic to presence. It reminds you that fear is a scene, not the viewer. When you face loss, heartbreak, or the end of something, ask another question that reframes the whole moment. What if this is a doorway? Where is my awareness shifting now? You're not denying grief. You're giving grief space inside a bigger frame. Door, not wall. Passage, not oblivion. One dream to the next. Write down your dreams. Journal synchronicities. Track unexplainable moments. Not because you need to build a court case, because these can be echoes, breadcrumbs, tiny reminders that reality is richer than your daily script. And then do something that sounds almost silly, but it works because it disrupts the autopilot. Pattern interrupts. Take a different route home. Speak a truth you usually swallow. Sit still for 2 minutes with no input and just observe. These are small acts, but they tell your nervous system, I am not just being carried, I am choosing. And here's the part nobody tells you. That is the same muscle you would need at any threshold. The ability to remain aware, the ability to remember yourself, the ability to see the trap as a story and not as fate. Now, we're about halfway through, so I want to lock in one thing with you. Comment, I choose awareness. If you want more videos like this, hit like and subscribe. Okay. Back to the deeper implication, because this is where the brain starts buzzing. If the many worlds style metaphor is even useful here, then every choice, every apparent ending, splits the river. Reality branches, possibilities multiply, and the observer only ever experiences the branch where observation continues. Again, I'm not trying to prove quantum immortality. I'm using the vibe the way the original teaching uses myth, as a mirror, as a map. The Gnostics would say you are both the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream. When one life closes, the box is not sealed, it shifts. Awareness collapses into a new unfolding, and that explains something most people can't articulate. That strange sense that life keeps resetting you, that endings don't feel like endings from the inside, that you don't remember the entry and exit points, you remember waking. You remember arriving, so when someone asks, what's the greatest secret? The answer in this framework is not that you end, it's that you continue. That your consciousness is never extinguished, only translated. But here's the part nobody tells you. Continuing without awakening is not freedom. It's just movement. The prison is not continuity. The prison is forgetfulness inside continuity. That's why the Gnostics warned about the loop. If you never question, you keep repeating the same lessons, the same wounds, the same fears. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because you keep meeting life as a fragment. You keep letting archonic fear tell you the script is final. And that brings us back to the core reframe. Awakening isn't escaping death. It's recognizing power as shifter. It's realizing you are never at the mercy of endings the way you were trained to be. Now, as promised, here's the practical section woven into real life, not philosophy. You do not need a rigid checklist. You just carry questions. You live like a lucid dreamer. You let your day become an experiment in awareness. When your mind starts spinning, pause, breathe, notice, I am. Ask who is witnessing this. When fear says this is the end, answer with presence. I have been here before. I am the traveler, not the journey. When loss hits, hold the doorway question gently. What if this is a doorway? Where is my awareness shifting now? You won't always feel magical. Good. That's not the point. The point is to stop sleepwalking. The point is to stop letting fear run the machine. The point is to remember yourself inside the dream. Now I'm going to do the required modern life expansion, because this is where this teaching either becomes useful or it becomes a cool concept you forget tomorrow. Let's talk about endings that aren't death, but feel like death. Losing a job, a breakup, a diagnosis, bankruptcy, failure. The moment you realize something you built is collapsing. Those endings hit the nervous system like a final wall. Your mind starts screaming, "This is it. This is the end." And that's exactly where the old fear machinery gets its grip, because it convinces you that your identity is tied to one timeline, one version of you, one outcome. The shifter mindset doesn't deny pain. It just refuses to make pain into a prison. It treats apparent endings as doorways. It asks better questions when your brain wants to panic. So picture this. You're having a brutal day. Everything is off. You spill something. You miss something. Someone texts you in a tone you can't read, and suddenly your mind is building a courtroom case against your entire life. In that moment, don't try to fix your life. Pause. Breathe. Notice, I am. Ask, who is witnessing this? That question pulls you out of the spiral and back into the one part of you that is stable. Then there's a hard decision. The kind where both options feel risky. The kind where you overthink until your brain turns into a browser with 50 tabs open and none of them are helpful. Here, the shifter mindset doesn't promise certainty. It offers clarity. You stop asking, which choice guarantees safety? And you start asking, which choice keeps me awake? Which choice aligns with the witness, not the panic? And then there's loss, the kind that makes you quiet, the kind that makes the world look different for a while. The teaching does not tell you to smile through it. It tells you to hold it like a threshold. What if this is a doorway? Where is my awareness shifting now? That single question can soften the sense of annihilation and replace it with movement, not forced optimism, just a wider frame. You don't need to know the full map. You just need to stay present enough to see the next step when it appears. You don't need certainty. You need presence. Now let's land the plane without pretending we solved the universe. The Gnostics risked everything to preserve the idea that reality is layered, that fear is a tool of control, and that your awareness is the indestructible traveler moving through a silent movement of reality. Endless shifting, seamless. So seamless your mind calls each arrival a birth and each departure a death, never realizing the endpoints are never experienced. Death is not the end. You are the awareness that keeps arriving. And if you need a daily reminder that this whole thing is not meant to be lived in panic, there's a line people repeat for a reason. Do not fear appears 365 times in the Bible, one for every day, not as a threat, as a reminder. Now your last CTA, and I want it honest. Tell me your strangest near miss or deja vu. Subscribe if you want the next deep dive. And I'll leave you with a question that stays half open on purpose. What if the next end you're afraid of is actually your next door?